Now let's focus in on how to connect with not just families, but with families, schools, and community partners all together. Early childhood and after-school programs, whether they're large or small, whether they're in an urban, a suburban, or a rural environment, are there because they want to serve children. So the child is really the focus of any program's mission and vision, and doing the best we can to support and lift up and serve each of the children in our programs is at the heart of who we are and what we do. In order to do that, we need to make sure that we have a strong relationship with the family. The family is the seat of the child's growth and experience. The parents are a child's first teachers. And even as a child moves out into the world and experiences a broader array of different contexts and different adult-child interactions and relationships, the family should always be where things start. They should always be the source of decision making and the source of identifying the goals and priorities for their child. As children grow, they experience a variety of other contexts within the community and the schools as well. So those environments, those contexts also have adult-child relationships and interactions. They also have elements of raising and teaching the child, just like the program and just like the family. And the more connection we can see between the program and the school and community elements, between the program and the family, and between the family and the school and community elements, the more of a whole circle of support we're wrapping around that child to give him or her the best possible chance to be happy and successful in life. As we begin to think about building bridges to community partners, whether it be schools, whether it be other nonprofits or community agencies, or whether it be local, state, or federally funded supports, it's important to ask the question of confidentiality. The potential barriers or challenges presented by confidentiality are going to be different with each potential partner. There are a variety of different things to consider around what information is shared and how that information is shared. And there are a variety of different potential solutions. At the heart of these issues, the question always remains whether or not you are only sharing information that is necessary to share, and whether or not you are making sure that you inform the parents and get permission for any information that you are sharing. When attempting to forge relationships with community and school partners, the first thing to remember is that the best way to build relationships is to make regular contact. And regular contact from your organization is good, but regular contact from the same person is even better. So ideally, you'd like to have one person doing that work. If you have a family engagement coordinator or a family and community partner coordinator or someone in that type of role, that's ideal. If you don't, a best practice would be to make sure that the individuals contacting different organizations or schools remain the same. So in other words, you might have a list of all of the different potential individual and organizations and schools that you might want to have relationships with, and you divide them up among your team so that each person has the same organizations that they reach out to again and again. The system that you set up, regardless of whether it's having a person do all the outreach or whether it's dividing those contacts up, needs to include regular ongoing communications. So even if it's just a quick check-in, or here's a fun thing that we did that you might want to try in your environment, or a little positive feedback, anything like that, just so that that relationship stays fresh and alive. And by doing that, by keeping that relationship fresh and alive, what you do is you build a lasting relationship rather than a situational relationship. So what do those regular ongoing communications look like? The first thing to think about is making sure that you're reaching out to multiple levels within an organization or system. So whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's another program that serves a different age range of children than you serve, whether it's a school, you want to be communicating at multiple levels. You want to communicate with people in leadership roles, you want to communicate with people working directly with the kids, and you also want to communicate with systems and infrastructure folks. So that might be a family or community coordinator, engagement coordinator at that organization. At a school, it might even be someone like a custodian of the facility. So building those relationships at multiple different levels is valuable for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is if somebody leaves, you still have other relationships. So as you're having those interactions, you want to make sure that you're offering as much as you're asking for so that it's a true partnership rather than you simply asking for stuff all the time and not having much to offer, or giving all the time and not receiving much in response. Try to have as many different approaches to getting together or communicating as possible, including having virtual meeting options or conference calls so that people can feel like you're adapting to their communication needs. And remember that each person has different preferences in terms of how they like to be communicated with. Some people like to talk face to face, some people prefer telephone, some people are very uncomfortable on the telephone and prefer emailing. Some people really like texting, where other people are very uncomfortable with texting. So with each person that you make contact with, figure out what their style of communication is and what their preferred communication media are, and then use those pathways to communicate with that individual person. Once you've got the pathways to communication figured out, you want to make sure that you're communicating on a regular scheduled basis. So in addition to those sort of like, hey, just wanted to share this great little thing with you type communications, you also want there to be an expectation of regular scheduled communications. In addition to that, you can invite people from those partner organizations to things like your events. One good example of that is inviting a teacher from a local public school to judge a photo contest at your family event. You can also invite partners that work directly with kids to cross-train with you. So teachers from the local public schools, if you're hiring a trainer to come into your organization, invite the teachers to come if anyone wants to. If you're working with organizations that serve youth, like librarians at public libraries, invite those folks to come and join you at your training if they would like to. You can also communicate about key elements of your program's academic enrichment or other areas of your mission so that your partner organizations understand what you're doing and take you seriously as not just daycare, but as an element of the continuum of education for the kids that you work with. So communicating about those things on a regular basis helps everyone to stay aligned, but it also helps everyone to remember that your organization is not just childcare, but actual enrichment or education. Sharing lesson plans or sample activities back and forth is another great way of accomplishing this. It's also very beneficial to communicate about children who are struggling, whether they're struggling social, emotionally, or academically, because that can help put additional supports in place, but again also shifts the perspective on what your organization does and how strong it is as a resource to the families. And attending IEP meetings or setting up team meetings so that there's collaboration around the support of children who are struggling is also a really good approach to bringing people together. But regardless of how you communicate and when and how frequently, you always want to make sure you lead with something positive, because that makes people more interested in communicating with you again in the future. Building lasting relationships can be kind of frustrating, especially when you run into wall after wall after wall. Send a letter, leave a voicemail, send an email, and never hear back. People often give up. Remember that building strong and lasting relationships requires patience, and sometimes part of that patience is trying and trying and trying again until you find the person who becomes the foot in the door to building a relationship with that organization, or until you finally get through to the person that you've been trying to reach out to. Building that good relationship is beneficial to both you and the other organization, the partner organization, so making that effort is definitely worthwhile. But before you start the outreach process, here are some things to keep in mind. First, what do you have to offer in the partnership? What is it that you want to share with your prospective partner? Next, what is it that you're hoping your prospective partner is going to offer in return? What do they have to share with you? Then also, who's going to be responsible for what pieces of this sharing or communication? Who's going to be scheduling conversations? Who's going to be making sure all the confidentiality documentation is all in place? Who's going to be making sure that things stay on track and keep moving towards whatever goals you set as a part of this partnership? And then finally, who all do you really need to be in touch with? Some examples might include superintendents, principals, teachers at a public school, librarians either at a public school or at a library, caseworkers or case managers or counselors, other care providers, learning coordinators, organizational supervisors, core staff members. There are so many different levels that you can be communicating on, and building relationships at multiple levels is good, but figuring out which ones are essential to the ongoing partnership is a very important thing to communicate. So what community organizations do you want to consider in terms of who you're going to reach out to and build these strong, lasting, meaningful, dynamic relationships with? Well, there are a lot of choices. And depending on the mission of your organization, the amount of resources that you have to dedicate to building strong community partnerships, and your priorities, you may want to reach out to a lot of these possibilities or just a few. But here are some common ones. Schools are a pretty common choice. If you're a program that serves school-age children, it's a very good idea to have strong relationships with your schools, the sending schools that work with the kids that you work with. If you're an early childhood program, it's still a really good idea to have relationships with the schools because of making sure that children are getting ready for kindergarten and that the transition to kindergarten goes smoothly. Libraries are another really great option. Being able to go to them and also to benefit from the resources that they can provide back to you can be a huge boon to programs. A number of libraries have librarians who are willing, if you communicate your learning goals, themes, and ages to them, to put together bags containing books that you can read to the kids on a weekly basis, and then you bring those books back and you get new books next week for your next theme. Museums are also a great option, both because of the educational possibilities and because museums tend to have very strong relationships within the communities in which they operate. Local businesses can be a great option. They can help you with fundraisers and prizes for parents or families, like gift certificates or coupons. They can also host events or activities and potentially help you with rewards for the kids if they succeed and meet your goals. Mental and medical health providers tend to be great partnership choices, particularly if you have children being served with medical or mental health needs in your program. And similarly, developmental support specialists like physical therapists or occupational therapists or speech pathologists that might work with kids in your programs. If you're an early childhood program, building a relationship with after-school programs so that you can refer children up as they age out of your early childhood program can be a great thing. And if you're an after-school program, forming relationships with other after-school programs can also be a great thing. Similarly, if you're an early care program, relationships with other early care programs, and if you're an after-school program, relationships with the early care programs that might be referring children up to you as they age out. There are a lot of great advocacy organizations, such as the Federation for Children with Special Needs, the parent-teacher associations in your communities, and other advocacy organizations that support the children and family that you serve. And then there are many, 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 many other choices, such as agencies that might be in your community or at your CAP agency that serve special populations or families who have unique challenges or barriers to overcome. So take a moment to think about who else might be a great choice for a community partner. So once you've figured out how you're going to communicate with whom at what organizations and what the goals of those partnerships are going to be, a tool that can really help kind of bring clarity to everything and clarify the communication process with your prospective partners about what that partnership would look like is the MOU. MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding, and it's a great little tool for helping everybody to understand the plan for how to go forward. You want to keep it as short and simple as possible. If it's overwhelmingly long and complex, that in itself will often turn people off to the idea of the partnership itself. The MOU should describe the goals or purposes behind the partnership, as well as the roles and responsibilities of all of the partners participating in the partnership. And again, make sure that each party is giving things and receiving things as part of the relationship, because nobody likes to feel taken advantage of, like they're giving and giving and giving all the time. But also, nobody likes to feel like a relationship is one-sided and like they're receiving and receiving, because it implies that you have nothing to offer. So making sure that that balance is there is very, very important. What you want to do then is have a collaborative dialogue about what the MOU ought to say. So get feedback from your prospective partner about what they'd like to see in the MOU. Talk about what you'd like to see in the MOU, and then kind of land at a happy middle ground and put the MOU together. Don't forget to consider issues of confidentiality that might arise and be prepared to offer solutions around how to resolve confidentiality issues.